Good morning, London. It's a pleasure to be here. It's good to see so many smiling, happy faces on a sponsored talk. I was expecting no one to turn up, but I'm Ben Kennedy. I am the Senior Manager of Front-End Development at Zebra Technologies. We are part of the Innovation Design Organization within the company, which is very much research and development. So this isn't going to be much of a sales pitch because I am not a salesperson. I'm completely the opposite end of the company. Cool. So I'm going to be talking about Android large screen, a pretty new feature set for developing Android apps. And I have brought with me some of our hardware, which is our Workstation Connect dock and just one of our standard Android devices. So, how should we start? So, I'd like to just get a feel of the audience. So, first of all, who here, and you know, this is going to be the maximum amount of audience participation involved, so don't worry about this. So either a show of hands or a grumble. Who's heard of Zebra Technologies before? Ooh, 4. One of which works for Zebra, at least. So, okay. So, and how many of you are app developers? That makes sense. And how many of you are enterprise app developers, as in developing apps for use within the business? Okay, cool. There wasn't any sounds of lawnmowers badly starting up, so yeah, I think visual is good. I'll continue my introduction about myself and why I'm here. So we are part of the Innovation and Design Organization. We work alongside the user experience team, the user experience design team. So we are, so the front-end development team works alongside the user experience design team to provide great user experiences for not only our app teams inside our company, Zebra Technologies, but also for providing advice and resources for third-party developers, partners, whomever. And we work alongside the UX team because, maybe I'm going a bit too much into this, but when we first started back at Motorola, we were bought out of Motorola. The user experience team were making some beautiful designs for our devices. They would hand them over to the developer teams. Developer teams would go, I don't know what to do with this, and then do whatever they want. So we're now in between to help transition the user experience designs into code. Cool. For those that haven't heard of Zebra Technologies, you might have seen something like this in Waitrose, Tesco, Sainsbury's, or there's other places where this is used, or you might have seen our logo when you're signing for a parcel if a postman comes around, and that might be one of our devices. But yeah, we create enterprise solutions, enterprise hardware. Sorry about that. So it's the sort of the reason why they're enterprise standard is you can do this, and I know that's going to work. So enough of that. What are we covering today? So the main portion of what we're going to be covering is about Android large screen, what it is, how to adapt your apps for it, how to code new apps for it in a variety of languages, Android of course, but also Xamarin and Flutter. I'll then go into our sponsory bit. So we'll be using this device. This is our Zebra TC52. It's one of our standard devices, which in essence is quite a lot similar to a standard Android phone. It has a barcode scanner as well, and it's much more robust, and it has extra enterprise features and software to make it much more useful in enterprise. So we will be coding up some things on there and showing it on this. So what is this wonderful looking piece of hardware? It is a pre-release piece of hardware. The real one is much nicer looking and shinier. This is our Workstation Connect Cradle. It fits many of our devices, or there are many different versions for different devices of ours, and it allows, let me switch over to the remote view has disappeared. There. What on earth? Hold on. I should be showing the remote view now, but I can't find it. Let's try it again. It's because it's switched off. Great. Live demos. Give me 1 second. It's because I went to the loo with my hotspot. Too much information. I would be doing this over standard USB ADB, but because we're switching from disconnected to connected, it wouldn't work. Right, you gonna work now? No. Oh, maybe I'll just leave this to connect and just carry on. Oh well. Okay, give me 1 second. Right, I'll start talking and fix this. I tested everything. This is the curse of demos. But because it disconnected from the network, it's lost its ADB setup. Excellent. Come on. Yeah? Yes, come on. There we go. Now screen share. Hooray. About there. Right, okay. So the main thing with this is it allows us to be able to take our Android device, and turn it into a desktop mode device. You might have seen this with Samsung DeX. So this might not be very impressive. And that's a wonderful demonstration of something going wrong with the background. Good. That's the benefit of using pre-release devices. Yeah, so it allows these mobile devices to become, in essence, desktop devices. So let's go back to here. So why is this important for our customers? We are, as I said, enterprise solution business. We go across a lot of different verticals, a lot of different markets. I'm going to point out 2 different use cases for this sort of setup. So the first one, a retail associate with a single device and its dock. They can be doing their scanning, they can be doing their stock taking, they're putting out products. And if they need to, for example, a customer comes up to them and asks them a question that they or wants to buy something there and then, they can go to a dock, put in their device, and it can turn into a point of sale system because you can have the payment device connected via USB or Bluetooth. You can have a receipt printer all connected up. So it allows one device to drive that instead of having to have multiple. So this allows all the 5 different things there and push-to-talk communicator as well. It allows them to consolidate all of that into a single device. The other one that I want to bring up is healthcare. So a health worker could be, of course, is going to be on their feet for a lot of the day. They can be going around patients, scanning patients' wristbands, saving data about their healthcare, but if they need to be able to access more advanced features, see graphs, see X-rays, they can put the same device into a cradle, and you've already scanned the patient's wristband, you know who they are, it will just show the same app, but with the extra data that you need. So there's no having to shift to another computer and transfer that identifier to be able to do that. So it saves time, hopefully saves lives, and saves money. So, Android large screen. Android large screen, there are 3 different gradients of qualifiers about how supported your apps are on large screens in Android. These are ready, optimized, and differentiated. And they are in order of usefulness, ability. So ready is the lowest accreditation, basically, to reach for your apps. Then you have optimized, and then you have differentiated. If they don't conform to any of these guidelines, standards, then your app still might work in compact mode, but it's not going to be very usable. Okay, so large screen ready, what does that involve? There's far too much detail on this. So to make something ready, it just needs to, you basically need to get it to work on a widescreen, on a desktop-style device. It might be that you've coded your app in such a way that it detects the form factor, the screen size, and locks your app into a particular orientation. That will not be large screen ready. If you load one of these apps up in this sort of setup, it will come up with black bars on the side. So it may still work, it's just not going to be very usable. So the thing to do here is to be able to enable the multi-window mode. Ignore the first bit. That's well, I mean, you might be able to use it with some of your Android devices already, but you can, if you go into the Android dev options, you can switch on force desktop mode to be able to test out the multi-window mode. But one point is you should show the action bar on the device, and to do that, you have the theme app-compat Android theme in the application or activity settings of the apps manifest. And then you can use the standard APIs, Windows Metrics API, to determine the size of the app window. One thing to look out for is, as I said, is you're looking for the window size, not the device size, because in a multi-window mode setup, or even if you have windowable apps, it doesn't matter what the device size is, because it's not going to be full screen, or may not have to be full screen. So always look at the window size instead of the device size. Don't cache it either, because this could change at any point. So always use fresh data. So for example, you could have coded your app to check what type of device it is when on start. But if it goes into a dock and it will change to a landscape orientation, it won't adapt correctly. Cool. And similar with rotation on your devices, we go through the same life cycle events in large screen as well. So the ones that I wanted to talk about here, I mean, for minimize, for example, so with the minimize you have on pause, on stop, this is fairly standard, but there may be things you need to do with the windowed mode, and it's escaping my mind what sort of things that would be. But yeah, so it's a fairly standard Android life cycle, the activity life cycle. So there's nothing too significant. apart from, oh, that's the one I was talking about. So if the window's resized, then it can do all of them. Hopefully not on destroy, but if window is resized, then you're going to have to often take some action, which we will go into. Okay. So with Android large screen, you can also have multi-instance. Is it time to show a demo? It's gone again. This was so reliable. Okay. Where's my mouse? There is my mouse. Okay. I can't actually see that. I'm going to have to do it from here. So, for example, with the multi-window mode, you can have multiple instances running in the same application. So you could, there we have the same application running twice, and we can have, and if they are running separately, you can type something in here, and it won't show on here. And you can see some of the life cycle things, the life cycle events that are happening. I can't see that. You can see some of the life cycle events that are happening here. So, for example, we've just had the on resume on this one. And you can also tell if it's the currently active activity by checking the on resume state. Oh, I can't remember. I should have noted that one. So yeah, so that's one example of multi-window mode. You may be more familiar with this when splitting applications on standard Android phones, but it's been extended a bit. Right, turn back. So yeah, with Android 10 and above, it's also that all all activities will resume. But before that, it used to be that that they would start but not resume. So this is a change from Android 10, that all of the visible activities will resume, or we'll call on resume, while previously it was only the top level currently active application. Cool. Data wedge there, that's specific to Zebra devices, but that's if you're wanting to use our scanners, data wedge is one of the easiest ways of doing it because it's intent-based. So you can you can set up your scanner in whatever way you want, just firing off an Android intent, and that's a little note if you are interested in that is you need to use the soft scan trigger. Once it's on a desktop mode, you won't be able to use the hard screen buttons at this point to be able to get that data into the large screen. Cool. Okay. So to get your app large screen ready, it's about user experience. This is quite similar to when coding for when the device rotates as well. You need to make sure that state persists. More events can happen when you are transferring to a multi-window or a large screen system. So you need to ensure that things like inputs persist. You need to make sure that scroll position persists, because if you scroll down a very large page and you plug it in, you're suddenly at the top. It will, for example, in the medical situation, that amount of time to find where they were could cost a life. So inputs, scrolling, and things like if you're playing media, you want the playback position to resume and to be the same, and for the playback to continue. So we're going to go into some code about how to do this. Anything else on there? Yeah, okay. So there's a couple of ways in standard Android to do this. There will be, there are various different objects and events that you can get through on resume. I should. So in Jetpack Compose, you can use remember savable to be able to persist state information. And similarly on for Android views on a save instance state, view models save state handle. So you save the information in the state and then pull it out on resume and then fill it in. For web apps, there is the standard way of stopping the activity being destroyed and restarted. There are certain circumstances in Android when converting to a multi-windowed mode where that will not always work. So it's always good to maintain state through on pause and on resume. Ooh, I've just skipped very far ahead. I did not know I could do that. Cool. Yeah. So for Xamarin or Maui, it is quite similar. So native Android saved instance state bundle, and we've got some links in here. This will be shared on the DroidCon resources page, I presume. So yeah, it's just about using key value pairs here on save instance state and being able to get it on create. Fairly simple. So Enterprise Browser is a web development kit that we provide in Zebra. So it's basically a web view with extra APIs to be able to control enterprise features. So coding, enabling things for large screen in Enterprise Browser is pretty much the same as doing it for Chrome or any other web view. So with web, it redraws or reloads the page far, far less. But there is a couple of things to look out for, especially if you're like in Workstation Connect, you may be using a mouse device, or it might be the interaction might be different instead of just being a touch screen. So pull to refresh is the main one to look out for. So pull to refresh, of course, you pull to refresh, it refreshes the page when you drag the page. But if you're scrolling with a mouse wheel, this could be very jarring. So this is our Zebra icons page. So for example, we could be doing some things, selecting some icons to download, and accidentally scroll up on the mouse wheel, and it reloads the page. There's a very easy fix for this, which is a CSS property called overscroll behavior. So if we can do a little bit of coding, if I can. 2 mice. So this is our CSS for the page. We can just add overscroll behavior none. What's wrong with that? I've spelled behavior wrong. And reload the page. And now if we scroll, I hope, yep, so we're scrolling up and down, you don't get the pull to reload. So that's a quick and easy fix for that. As a aside for this page is available at zeta-icons.web.app if you want some free icons. These are designed icons from Zebra with enterprise usage in mind. So yeah, they are free to use. You're welcome to use it. We have the developer in the room as well. Thank you, Mike. Cool. Okay. I don't know Ionic myself, but that's how you do the saving of UI states in Ionic. And there is an example code for that reference there as well. So for Flutter, Flutter's a lot easier because Flutter basically manages this by default, as far as we've experienced. We haven't come across any issues when coding this with Flutter, and our primary language that we use in the development team, in the front-end development team for mobile is Flutter. So go Flutter. Okay, so that's large screen ready. So it's about accepting other forms of input, such as the mouse when you're doing the pull to refresh, but you make sure that it works with a standard keyboard, standard mouse, styluses, although that's going towards the differentiated level. It's about accepting changes to the window and showing things appropriately. So for the ready, it may just scale or change the width of the app, but the content itself doesn't change. For optimized, this is to get a better view depending on what form factor the app is running in. This is fairly standard responsive or adaptive app design. So, for example, the Android calendar is a nice example. We have the calendar view. We have the month view on the left and the calendar view on the right. And hopefully this is going to work. Rotate. That would be the equivalent. It's not rotating. That would be the equivalent for if it's in mobile mode. Come on. Good. Yeah. So that's basically what Android Optimize is about. Is actually making it a good user experience. For those which are creating consumer apps, there's studies been done, and that when users are using apps in tablets or large screen devices, they're using apps for a lot longer each time. So especially if you're in e-commerce, this can translate. If you have a good app that people enjoy using on a tablet, then it can quite easily equate to higher sales. Majority of the things for large screen optimized is pretty much the same as running your app on a tablet. Android developers have opinionated helper classes within Android to be able to differentiate between the device form factors. And they are the compact, medium, and expanded form factors. So there are, and they are based on the display pixel width of each of the device form factors. So yeah, for large screen optimized, support multiple different screen sizes and show the appropriate user experience for each of them. And yeah, it's basic, create adaptive or responsive UIs. And there we have, so avoid locking your app to a specific orientation, especially if you're testing that when the app first starts. Cool. Another one is also enabling better accessibility and user interface interaction by enabling standard things like copy and paste. Drag and drop is for differentiating, the next level up, but tabbing between inputs or buttons and using arrow keys. Cool. And then differentiated, which I won't really go into because we don't have a differentiated view in Zebra, but differentiated is especially important for things like foldables, where you can have rather unique device form factors, like in table mode. You may want to have a very specific UI to be able to show, for example, if you're on a video conferencing, you'd have the video at the top and the controls at the bottom. So that can be exactly the same screen, but by detecting that it's a foldable interface, you may therefore show a different UI than you would if it was just a standard tablet. Okay, moving on to accessibility. Accessibility is important for me. Accessibility, as everyone knows, allows everyone, or majority, the vast majority of people to be able to use devices. So what sort of accessibility things are there? People can have different abilities, can have disabilities, and there are the standard ones that people think of, the stereotypical ones, such as hearing loss, physical dexterity, visual, eyesight problems, but there are more types of accessibility issues that are harder to think of or harder to stereotype, which I suppose is a good thing. Cognitive load. So a lot of people might recognize from my presentation styles, I've got ADHD. And part of ADHD is that I have a poor working memory. So relying on a user interface, having a user interface that relies on working memory might make it difficult to use an app. To know that, oh, okay, 4 steps ago, I was doing this is what I recorded, and so stepping through. So, there are plenty of things, and there's huge amounts of guidelines for accessibility. There's plenty of things to do that can improve your app to make it more usable for more people. But I'd like to talk about situational. So, especially for us in Zebra, situational disabilities is a significant thing that we design for. So what is a situational disability? So this is a motorbike glove, but this could be any sort of glove. We have devices which can operate in Arctic weather. So they can be put into deep freeze and they would still work. So the user might be wearing a glove. So why is this important? Because this situation, if you're wearing a glove, is in essence the same as a physical disability. You can't get, I wouldn't be able to press the icons on the screen here with my finger here. So, and then there are other situational disabilities which would come about. We have our devices used by baggage handlers on runways. So they are packing planes, and of course it's going to be incredibly noisy experience having jet engines right behind you. But also it can be very sunny, it can be very dark, there's a whole load of visual, cognitive, audio, situational disabilities that your user can be in. So coding with accessibility in mind means that by default, a lot of these will be handled automatically. Now I need to take this off. Cool. Excellent. So what we do in the user experience design team and in the front-end development team is we have a standard set of accessibility topics that we make sure we check and test for each of our designs. So responsiveness for the screen size and font scale. It's a user option to be able to scale the font. So you need to be able to test your app's work in different font sizes or scale options. Localization, that's a fairly obvious one. The localization tools are expansive and have been baked into Android since the very beginning. Color contrast, that's a very interesting one, which I'll touch on in a sec. And the ability to accept alternative inputs, just like we have the alternative inputs with the keyboard and mouse. But this is a really interesting piece of technology, which is a single button. So for those with quite significant motor issues, you can use Android by using just a single button. It's really interesting. So how it works. I'm not going to go into it now because I've only got 5 minutes left, but it's to be able to code for things like this means that your app is going to be available for far more people. So color contrast. Color contrast is important for those with visual issues, such as I said, situational disability and incredibly bright light. So color contrast makes it easy. Color contrast measure is how easy it is to read, and it's generally about text and background. This is not a good example. This contrast is only 4.33 reoccurring to 1. Now, if we're talking about the American disabilities, the ADA, what does the A stand for? Do you know mine? The ADA is a set of guidelines that we use in America. This will only pass the A rating, and we target AAA, which is the top level that the ADA support. So what would be better is to have it on a black background. So this now is at 4.84 to 1, the contrast ratio of the text to the background, which is only enough for AA. It's not enough for AAA. So AA is really good, but we wouldn't be able to sell our apps with this contrast ratio into certain industries, such as the banking industry, because there are American laws to say all of their interfaces have to be AAA supported. And this is some Flutter examples of how to enable accessibility. Majority of the work involved is to be able to add text to allow screen readers to describe what's happening in the app. And this is how you do it in Flutter. Now, we've created a library of components in Flutter for our apps, which we are now providing freely. It's open source, and it's already on pub.dev, as well as on our GitHub. So we have created all of the components for a suite of our apps, which we are pushing into all of our apps. And these, all of these components have been tested with AAA accessibility in mind. Of course, it's also about how you use the components will change how accessible they are. But they've gone through some very stringent testing to make sure that they are accessible. We also have started our very standardized, very highly supported design system, which we're nicknaming Zeta. And this is going to be a very high quality, very well documented set of components available, again, open source, which my team is starting work over the last 3 months. And we're continuing to create components for it. At the moment, it's just typography and colors, but those colors, again, have been tested for AAA. Cool. How much longer have we got? We're about there. Then we've seen what happens with Workstation Connect. It converts the devices to workstations, sales points. So I will leave it there. If there is anyone interested in how to configure Workstation Connect, you can come to our booth, or you can take the slides. There's plenty of information in here. And there we go. Anyone have any questions? Cool. Then if you've got any further questions about any of this, or even if you want to talk about neurodiversity at work, then I'll be hovering around the Zebra booth downstairs. Thank you very much for your time.